You thought they left because you weren't enough. You asked yourself what you did wrong, what you failed to give, how you could have loved better. But here's the truth. The narcissist's final discard was never about you. It was about control, about manipulation, about breaking your sense of worth so deeply that when they return, you still open the door. But today, I want you to wake up. Because if you're caught in the loop of breaking up, reconciling, then being discarded again, you're not alone. And no, you're not crazy. You're being pulled into a psychological system designed to keep you addicted to your own pain. In this video, I'm revealing 5 critical truths you must know about the narcissist's final discard, from how they use ambiguity to destabilize you, to why they really come back, and most importantly, how to reclaim your power and finally say, enough. If you're healing from narcissistic abuse, don't just watch part of this. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me till the end, because what you're about to learn won't just help you understand them. It might just set you free. If you believe that their last goodbye was the end, a clear closure that lets you move forward, I need to tell you, with a narcissist, nothing is ever truly final. They might walk out of your life coldly, even cruelly, but they almost always leave the door cracked open, not because they love you, but because they want control, just in case they need it again. The final discard rarely means what it sounds like. For emotionally healthy people, a breakup is an ending, a mutual decision to move on. But for a narcissist, a breakup is often just a tactic, a way to punish you, to shake your sense of self, to make you doubt yourself enough that when they return, you welcome them back with open arms. That's not love, that's control. Many survivors of narcissistic abuse find themselves addicted to the very person who hurt them. Why? Because narcissistic relationships often create something called a trauma bond. You love them, but you fear them. You miss them, but you're scared of getting hurt again. So every time they leave and come back, you hope maybe this time will be different. But it never is, and each time it hurts more. What breaks your heart even deeper is the lack of closure. They walk away without explanation, or worse, with absurd excuses. Some people get dumped over something as trivial as hair color, or for a trait the narcissist once claimed to love. This drives your brain into overdrive. You try to make sense of the nonsense. You try to stitch the pieces together, but there's no logic to find. That's the trap. They know you need closure to move on, and they weaponize that need. They want you waiting, hoping, holding on to the idea that someday they'll offer the final conversation, the apology, the truth. But here's the truth: they won't. They can't. And they don't want to. So if you're standing in the aftermath of what feels like the final discard, remember you decide whether it's final, not them. They might come back. They might apologize. They might beg. But you're no longer their puppet. The power is yours now. This is your moment to create your own closure, not because they changed, but because you did. And if you ever need a reason not to go back, just remember your most painful moment with them and ask yourself, do I want to go through that again? We grow up believing that every story, no matter how painful, deserves an ending, a final conversation, an explanation, an apology. That's how our brains make sense of heartbreak, by giving it closure, so we can turn the page and move forward. But when you love a narcissist, you quickly realize closure doesn't exist in their world. Because closure requires 3 things. Narcissists are incapable of offering accountability, honesty, and compassion. They can't take responsibility because to them, everything is someone else's fault. They can't be truthful because deception is how they control reality. And they can't empathize because your pain means nothing compared to their ego. What's worse is that many victims feel stuck because they crave that last explanation. But what they don't realize is that this craving itself becomes a trap. Narcissists know it and they exploit it. They use your need for closure as a hook, something they can dangle in front of you to pull you back in when they want supply. They'll keep you dangling in emotional limbo, wondering, did we really break up? Maybe he'll come back. If I try harder, maybe she'll see I'm sincere. The answer is no. There's no closure because there was never authenticity. What you miss isn't the real them. It's the mask they wore, the charming, affectionate, idealized version they created to ensnare you. When they leave, they do it in the most damaging way possible, abruptly, coldly, and without explanation. And you, the one who gave everything, are left behind, trying to escape a maze with no exit. The truth is, you don't need closure from them. You need truth that they won't change. You need courage to write your own ending. And you need clarity to realize that sometimes you move on not because you got answers, but because you deserve peace. Here's a harsh truth. The final discard isn't always final. Because for the narcissist, leaving isn't closure, it's strategy. And unless you slam that door shut for good, they'll be back. We call it the hoover, like a vacuum. They come back to suck you in. Not because they miss you, not because they've changed, but because they need supply. They might show up out of nowhere after months of silence. A text that says, "Just checking if you're okay," or "Heard our old song today. Thinking of you." It sounds harmless, but it's bait. And if you respond even a little, you've cracked the door open. And once they sense you still feel something, they'll exploit it like a predator that smells blood. Why do they come back? Because you once loved deeply. Because you once forgave. Because you still crave closure. And because they know those who were hurt the deepest are often the easiest to reel back in. Hoovering isn't remorse. It's tactical. And tragically, it works because the wounds they left behind haven't healed. But this is where you must wake up. You must remember the one who broke your spirit cannot be the one to help you find it again. They hoover when they sense your healing, when you're silent, when you seem at peace, when you begin to reclaim joy. That's when they panic, and that's when they come back with apologies, tears. "I've changed." Don't fall for it, because real change doesn't knock with old tricks, and real love doesn't disappear only to return when it needs a fix. Silence. For most people, it might simply mean keeping the peace, avoiding unnecessary conflict, or having nothing more to say. But for a narcissist, your silence is their worst nightmare. Not because they miss you, not because they regret, but because silence means loss of control. You see, a narcissist feeds on your presence, not as a person, but as a mirror. They look at you to see their inflated ego reflected back. They manipulate you to feel powerful. They provoke you just to measure their influence. And every time you react, whether with anger, tears, or pleading, you're feeding their illusion of control. But when you go silent, that mirror shatters. Your silence is a statement. It says, "I'm no longer here to feed your emotional addiction." And that strikes at the very heart of a narcissist's deepest fear: being left, being forgotten, becoming irrelevant. When you disappear completely, when you stop texting, stop replying, stop blocking and unblocking, stop stalking their social media, stop talking about them, they begin to lose their grip. What they once saw as a reliable supply has gone dark. And here's the truth. Most narcissists are not prepared for that. They always believe you'll come back, that you still need closure, that you're still in pain. But when you're not anymore, they panic. They begin to wonder, are they talking to someone else about me? Are they exposing me? Why aren't they reacting? And when they don't get answers, their imagination becomes their enemy. They lose sleep, stalk your social media, reach out through others, all because of one thing: your silence strips them of the central role they once had in your mind. And then, as the silence stretches on, your absence becomes permanent. It's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of power, of control, of being the star in the drama they created. That terrifies them more than anything, because now there's no one to blame, no one to manipulate, no one to gaslight into believing they're the victim. And the best part, you don't have to do anything, just stay silent. You don't need a dramatic post. You don't need to reply to their apology. You don't need to say whether you forgive them or not. You just need to not be there. Live your life. Heal. Love yourself. And turn your presence into a privilege, not something they can abuse. So if you're wondering whether silence has power, the answer is absolutely yes. It's not just a strategy. It's freedom. It's the boldest move you can make to reclaim your life and to ensure the one who manipulated you will never have that power again. If you're still with me, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Up next, we're diving into the narcissist's final fear when you find true happiness. Without them, don't miss it. Nothing terrifies a narcissist more than seeing you not just survive without them, but thrive, shine, and find real happiness, completely on your own. To them, you were once a pawn in a game they thought they controlled. They believed you would crumble without them, that without their presence, you'd panic, spiral, and lose your way. But day by day, step by step, you stood up. You chose yourself. You didn't just survive, you resurrected. And that's the one thing they never saw coming. You know why. Because narcissists don't understand true happiness. To them, happiness is admiration, submission, attention. But your happiness, it's peace without pretending. It's authenticity. It's love that doesn't come with conditions. And that drives them mad. When they see you enjoying life, achieving dreams you once shared when you were with them, jealousy ignites. They can't stand the idea that someone could escape their empire of control and still succeed. Every one of your wins is living proof that they are no longer the center of your universe. They spy on you silently, indirectly, maybe through fake accounts or mutual contacts. They envy your new connections, your smiles on social media, the freedom in your eyes. But the most haunting realization, you don't even think about them anymore. You don't need their validation. You don't want an apology. You don't seek closure. You don't even care if they see your growth. You've moved on not just physically, but emotionally. And that drives them insane. Not because they love you, but because they lost their power. The game is over. And you're the one who ended it. So keep living. Keep healing. Love yourself so deeply that no one can dim your light again. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Your glow is the final answer. If you're on your journey back to yourself, hit subscribe and stay with us until the end. Because your freedom isn't just survival, it's victory. There's a moment in the healing journey, you'll never forget the moment you realize I don't need an apology from them anymore. It's not because you've forgiven them. It's not because what they did was acceptable. It's because you no longer need them to heal. For the narcissist, apologies are never sincere. They're just tools, manipulation disguised as remorse designed to pull you back into their web. They don't apologize because they hurt you. They apologize because you left, because you escaped their control. And when you stop waiting for an apology, you set yourself free. You're no longer a prisoner to false hope. You no longer need closure from the person who shattered you. Because real closure doesn't come from someone else. It comes from within, from choosing to release pain the other person will never take responsibility for. You don't need their validation to know your worth. You don't need them to admit you were right. You don't need them to understand your pain, because now you understand yourself. And that terrifies the narcissist. You've stepped off the stage they used to control. No audience, no reaction, no supply. And suddenly, they lose all meaning. You've done what they fear most. You healed without them. You forgave without an apology. You moved forward without closure, and that denies them the power to write the ending. If you've ever waited for an apology that never came, remember this, you don't need it to begin again. Keep watching, because real freedom starts the moment you give yourself the closure they never could. There is nothing more terrifying to a narcissist than you waking up and realizing your true worth. Because your self-worth, when it no longer depends on their approval, compliments, or validation, is something they can't manipulate. And for someone who thrives on emotional control, that's like losing their oxygen. The day you stop trying to be good enough in their eyes is the day you begin returning to yourself. No more shrinking in fear of losing them. No more trading your dignity for scraps of affection. No more thinking, if I change, maybe they'll treat me better. You realize you don't need to change to be loved. If someone can't love your most authentic self, they're simply not worthy. And in that moment, you don't just leave a toxic relationship. You leave behind every lie the narcissist ever planted in your mind that you were unlovable, not enough, broken, or dependent on them. All lies. You've always been enough, they just needed you to forget that to keep you trapped. When you begin rebuilding your life, not from desperation, but from self-love, you do the one thing they fear most, you become free. You become radiant, strong, unshakable, and they know they can never enter your life again. They fear your self-love. They fear your standards rising. They fear that you'll never again accept the conditional love they once offered. Because when you know you deserve whole, healthy love, you'll never settle for toxicity again. So you've made it to the end of this video, and if you're still here, it means you're truly on the path to healing. Not everyone is brave enough to face the pain, dig into the truth, and work through the wounds a narcissist leaves behind. But you're doing that. And that's not weakness. It's the mark of tremendous inner strength. We've covered the 5 critical things you need to know about the narcissist's final discard, from how it's used as a tool of manipulation, to the empowering truth that you get to decide when it's really over. And above all, we've learned that closure doesn't come from them. Closure is a gift you give to yourself. Because when you stop waiting for an apology, stop searching for answers, stop clinging to someone who was never truly there, you're not just closing a chapter. You're stepping into a new path, one where you're no longer manipulated, no longer a source of supply, no longer cast in their twisted narrative. If this video resonated with you, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Let the world know you're rising, that you're healing, and that this time final really means forever.